Yo, what's going on, guys? Jared here. Switching it up from content a little bit. This card is coming out in Legacy of Destruction called Equation System Cannon, and I think this is a really interesting card, and I actually wanted to talk about it a little bit. So if you enjoy these little discussions, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. But we'll just go ahead and jump into this card. So obviously this is a trap card coming out of Legacy of Destruction, and it reads, a normal trap card, banish 2 Exceed monsters with the same rank and 1 Fusion monster from your extra deck whose combined levels and ranks equal the total number of cards on the field and in both players' hands. Then you can return 1 of each of your banished Fusion and Exceed monsters to the extra deck whose combined level and rank equal the level of the rank of one face-up monster your opponent controls. Then banish all cards your opponent controls. That is a mouthful, and this card is pretty complicated, but I actually wanted to break this down so you can visualize it, so you kind of get an understanding. So here is a kind of generalized game state. This is just very simple, just to make this so it's understandable. So I have the card here set. It is very important to know of how this card works. So what matters is the amount of cards in both players' fields and hand, because that is what we have to worry about, field and in both players' hands. So the total number of cards in our fields and hand is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, because it does count itself. It's very important. So there is a total of 12 cards, meaning that we have to banish 12 levels or ranks from our extra deck, and the ranks have to be the same, and it's 2 Exceeds and 1 Fusion. So in this game state, if we flip and activate the Equation System Cannon, we would have to banish level 12 or rank 12 worth of stats. So we can banish 2 Exceeds with the same rank. They can be different Exceeds, same Exceed, doesn't matter. And then 1 Fusion monster that equal the number of cards in the hand and field. So this is going to be 12. This is our 12. Then for the second part of the effect, you can return 2 of your banished monsters, 1 Exceed and 1 Fusion. So 1 of the Exceed monsters you banished and the Fusion that you banished back to the extra deck, equal to the combined level/rank of the monsters your opponent control, of 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, and then banish all cards your opponent controls. So what would happen here is you can return back the Mud Dragon and 1 of the Exceed monsters that you have, so that now equals level 8. So your opponent has to have a level 8 monster on the field, such as Snake Eyes Flamberg's Dragon, and at resolution, this card is going to banish all cards my opponent controls. This is a very powerful effect for one trap card, and you do not see a lot of trap cards do something as powerful as this. This is on par with something like Evenly Matched, right? You are banishing everything that they have. That is big, especially against something like Snake Eye, which is very field dependent and has a lot of board presence. You can just wipe it all out and hit things like the one of Oak, the one of Jet Synchron, the one of the original Simple Spoils early. If they don't, obviously they have to draw Wanted to put it back. But yeah, there's a lot of important factors that you can hit, and sometimes you can even get double Flambergs hit with it. You can hit the Promethean Princess. There's a lot of different cards you can hit, and this is not only just good against Snake Eye. This is just for this example specifically. I'm pretty much just emphasizing how strong banishing the entire field is for one trap card. Because if you're comparing this to other normal generic trap cards, because obviously you can't play this deck in Snake Eye deck. I know I'm holding the Snake Eye Fire King deck, but obviously this would be using something like maybe like Paleo or Labyrinth or something like that, where you have a very flexible extra deck and you can actually move around the levels and the ranks that you need to be able to use it. So when you put this next to things that are being played or were played as powerful trap cards, things like Ice Dragon's Prison, things like Compulsory Activation Device, Solemn Strikes, this card is ridiculous if you can get it to resolve. It is crazy. So any deck that I think can have the proper manipulation of the game state and monsters your opponent controls, I think this card could really, really shine with such a powerful effect. Also, randomly, this card isn't a hard once per turn. I don't know if that matters, but you can do this multiple times in a turn if that ever comes up. But I just thought that was something that was cute that you could do that was pretty funny. But I think this card is actually not too bad of a card, surprisingly. Obviously, it is extremely complicated and extremely convoluted, but when the effect resolves, it's just a crazy card for one trap card to completely nuke your opponent's side of the field. And you can't interact with it either, right? There's no interaction that you can, obviously you can't Ash Blossom this, you can't Bell this. The only things that are going to be able to negate something like this are something that is visible on the field, something like a Baron to floor, right? Something that's there that you can see. So you know to play around it a little bit. And it's important to make sure that you keep track of the amount of cards that are on the field and in the hand, because it can change at resolution, right? Like if your opponent chains something, let's say that this IP was on the field and they chained IP to the equation cannon, now it can't resolve properly. So it's something you have to keep in mind with this card, because it checks for the monster at resolution and not during the activation of the card, which is very, very important, and it affects the numbers. It's crazy how like convoluted this card is. But again, this card is actually kind of like a little bit of a retrain of a card called Linear Equation Cannon, which we actually have already. It came out in Blazing Vortex, but this was a battle phase card, which made this card not so good. I didn't, obviously cards you have to wait for the battle phase aren't good. Like 99% of the time. It's pretty rare where you have a card like this that can be good that's battle phase restricted. Whereas this card is not battle phase restricted. This card you can activate whenever during your opponent's combo. Once the numbers start making sense and add up, you can flip this and nuke their board and blow them out of the water with a single trap card. Especially with a lot of commitment that you have to do into like back row. A lot of decks don't play like very natural back row removal right now. I think that's a very important thing to note. Like obviously we play Little Knight and Phoenix, but a lot of times you have to like derail your combo a little bit to get into those cards. And if you're setting, and if this is played in a trap deck anyway, you're gonna have plenty of back row to work with regardless. And a lot of people may assume that you're playing Floodgate deck, but you could have like very, very strong interruptions now in the form of something like this card, where it's kind of like a torrential tribute right effect, but rather than destroying just monsters, you are banishing everything. So yeah, obviously the downside to this card is you have to build your extra deck around it. You need a lot of Exceeds, and you need a lot of Fusions to get the numbers and the math right. So obviously you wouldn't be able to play things like certain pot cards. You wouldn't be able to play a real extra deck. That's like obviously really, really important. Unless your deck already plays Exceed monsters, that would be like the caveat to that, right? Like if you're playing Paleo, right, you're already going to play rank 2s in your deck, so you can kind of, you can work with that. But yeah, so that's going to be for this card. And for Linear Equation Cannon, this card was actually popular and made a lot of meme decks, actually. Like a lot of people were talking about this card because of just how funny it is and how complicated this card is. As you can see, a lot of people made videos on it. And I'm very surprised that no one is talking about this card, because I think this card is a lot better than a lot of people are perceiving it as. And I just wanted to give some attention to it, if I'm being honest, because I think that this is something that could actually be played and not like be like a joke, kind of, because this obviously was a joke, that just how complicated the card text is. Obviously this card text is also complicated, but this effect is so much more real than the Linear Equation Cannon. The equation system cannon is so much better. So yeah, I think that's going to pretty much do it for this video. Obviously there is a lot more applications to this card. There was no fusions and exceeds that I could tell that benefit from being banished from a card like this. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain I couldn't find any. There might be other cards that can benefit from something like that, but for now, I couldn't find any, so you're better off just playing like super poly targets that can range from like, level 4 to like 7 or 8. There's like literally like a chain of them, which is kind of nice. I think the only ones that it skips is 5, if I remember right, from like 4 to that level. So it's pretty decent. It's not too bad. But let me know what you guys think of Equation System Cannon. I think this is a really interesting card coming out of Legacy of Destruction, and could see some attention and should see a little bit more attention than it's getting as just a bulk card, because this is very surprisingly, I think, okay for the effect and the payoff. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion, and until then, I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.